Welcome to the Astro Psyche. I recently wrote an article on my website about Saturn and transformation, particularly Saturn as this symbol of transformation of our boundaries, responsibility, and containment. And I wanted to read a bit from that to you and share some additional thoughts that I may have coming up. So this entire article, it's very brief, is on my website, theastropsyche.com. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I like to explore the intersection between depth psychology, depth psychotherapy, and astrology. And so that's a bit of what this is today. So the title of this article is Saturn and Transformation, Boundaries, Limits, Containment, and Safe Holding Spaces. These are all archetypal themes of Saturn. And so I begin with a quote from the psychotherapist and astrologer Stephen Arroyo. In his book titled Astrology, Karma, and Transformation, he said, "All of astrology, when applied to individuals' lives, deals with transformation." And so what he meant by this is that from this perspective, the planets, the signs, the houses, the aspects, and the entire birth chart as a whole, along with transits, can demonstrate a person's ongoing developmental process through the lifetime. And I think this is really cool and interesting, and this is why I enjoy astrology, because it provides this symbolic language to help us to understand what is happening now, to help us understand as far as our psychological development, spiritual, emotional development, all of the things. So when we talk about the word transform, what does that actually mean? Hang on, let me remove someone in here that, okay, there we go. Okay, so to transform implies a major change in form or nature. And so we're constantly transforming in multiple ways, multiple times, and astrology is this unique symbolic language that speaks to the quality of time. So astrology describes our experience of a time period. And it tells us about how we are experiencing this transformation, both personally and collectively. So this psychotherapist and astrologer, Stephen Arroyo, goes on to say that astrology does not necessarily symbolize the outer situation or events in a person's life, although it may do so in certain instances. But he says much more often it will symbolize the inner experience and how that experience fits into the total life pattern. So here, Arroyo explains how astrology is an indicator of the quality of time, the experience, versus the quantity of time, the literal events. And so for this reason, astrology as a symbolic language of psyche tends to do best when it's studied via what we would call a qualitative research method. And so this is qualitative research is often used in the humanities or social sciences, social studies, and this is where inquiry is used to generate knowledge about human experience and social processes. So this type of inquiry relies on language, observation, and artistic presentation rather than statistical data. And this makes a lot of sense to me because the psyche, the mind, the emotions are experiential, and there's often this sense of describing an experience not in a measurable way, though I know sometimes we try to do that, but sometimes experiences are best described via an image or a sensation. Sometimes there are no words. And a part of the beauty of astrology is that it gives us more language. It helps us connect in with the symbolic, with the archetypal, with something bigger. Okay, so let's see, what else do I want to say to you here? Okay, so Arroyo goes on to say that the planets in astrology and their aspects tend to indicate different types of personal transformation. And he in particular talks about Saturn being a symbol of transformation of one's sense of freedom, individual purpose, or sorry, one sense of the freedom of one's ambitions, of priorities, and work structure. So I want to also give you some other keywords, phrases to help you to get a symbolic archetypal flavor of Saturn. So Saturn is a symbol of devotion, of practice, particularly practicing something over a long period of time, long-term missions or goals, foundations, dedication to something. Saturn is also a symbol of sacrifice, and when we decide to sacrifice one thing for something else, particularly if it's something that is very important to us, there's a sense of gravity, importance, and a sense of seriousness to Saturn. So wherever Saturn is in the birth chart, or whenever there's a Saturn transit, we connect into this sense of gravity, sense of responsibility. So, of course, because of this, Saturn can also indicate where there might be a time of feeling burden, feeling low mood or depression, feeling melancholy, a lack of vitality, or even burnout. And so, this is when the responsibilities or whatever it is that we're dedicated to becomes too much. There can be this. So I do want to say, and I'll talk more about burnout in a second, but really the cause of burnout is when the requirements on us, whatever it is that you're doing, it is too much for whatever it is that you have capacity for. Okay, so let's see, what else? There's the other things that I want to share with you about Saturn. And so I'm also sharing this with you within the context of the moment when the time period when I'm recording this is that Saturn has just recently moved back into Pisces. And so we're also connecting back into some of the themes that we've been working on around these particular issues, around boundaries, responsibilities, foundations, over this past year of 2025. Okay. Saturn also relates to confidence, and particularly the confidence that we cultivate through experience. So I'm sure that maybe you've had an experience where you do something again and again over a long period of time. Could be anything. Could be a sport, a skill, playing an instrument, skateboarding, surfing, writing, riding a bike, etc. Anything that you do consistently over time, there will be a sense of gaining confidence in that particular thing. And so Saturn is also a symbol of this confidence that gets instilled in us through repetitive exposure to something, through practice. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, so Saturn in the birth chart or Saturn by transit can show where the qualities of confidence or lack of confidence come up. Having confidence, lacking confidence, the process of cultivating confidence. I find that this can also tap into feelings of how we feel useful, how we feel of value. And when these themes come up, particularly via something that we connect with as far as Saturn in the birth chart or via transits, there is something here about moving more towards what it is that you want to become, where you want to become more strong and confident, and that there is a long-term process of moving toward that. Okay, other things that are Saturnian in nature, boundaries, limitations, restrictions, containment, safe holding spaces, material world matters, making things real, within a framework or consensus reality. Saturn is also connected to patience. It's also connected to this symbol of folks who have some sort of influence on other people, having a sense of mastery. Paternal or fatherly type figures, that could be your experience of paternal type figures, or folks who fit that role for you in some way, or just your idea, your concept of paternal or fatherly type figures. And also just Saturn connects into our family line as well. Our ancestry is a symbol of Saturn. Let's see. Real estate, homes, the physical home, land, agriculture, nature. I find Saturn can also be connected to contemplation as well, particularly if it is about contemplating things that feel important to you. Wisdom gained through experience, that's something I said. And Saturn also is a symbol of age, mortality, and being in a relationship to folks who are much older or much younger than you. There's this quality of Saturn reminds us of the passage of time. And so for that reason, it can also bring up all of the feelings that we have about age. Let's see. So yes, also Saturn is a symbol of elders, crones, the aging process, and what that brings mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so isn't it interesting that the planet Saturn is often seen as one of the more challenging planets, one of the more, in ancient astrology, it was called a malefic planet, and that it was difficult. And in our modern culture, we find the aging process to be difficult, or something that we're not embracing as much. So there's we can look at this through all of these different perspectives. Saturn is also a symbol of mentorship, seeking wisdom or guidance from someone who has more experience in something that you like, or something that you're pursuing. And I think at the end of the day, Saturn is about our inner empowerment, connecting in with that sense of inner security that comes through practice, time, wisdom, and having autonomy over one's self. Okay, so what I also want to say here, and again, this article's on my website, theastropsyche.com. If you like to take in information via reading it more than hearing it, that's a way to do that. So from a depth psychological perspective, the planetary archetypes represent the challenges as well as the healing process. And I think especially Saturn. Saturn can often present in a way where there is some sort of challenge or overcoming or initiation type process. So when we contemplate Saturn via a transit or via a birth chart, there's an opportunity to transform our relationship to any variety of these themes that I've mentioned, to transform our relationship to aging or time or boundaries or how we feel emotionally safe and contained. So, for example, a transit of Saturn can potentially signal time periods where we may feel burnt out, low mood, or insecure in some way. And so astrology is this symbolic language that is bound by time and cycles. So Saturn, so astrology is not causal, it's correlative. So Saturn does not cause these experiences, rather it reflects a time where a variety of its symbols may arise for further transformation. So we could think of astrology as this archetypal cosmic clock, just in the way that when it's noon, the clock doesn't cause you to be hungry around noon. It just says this is the time of day where, you know, the sun is high in the sky. And so it's reflecting. So in this case, we're holding this Saturn as an indicator of a quality of time, and particularly an opportunity for transforming your experience of something. So in this case, let's say burnout arises at any time, or particularly during a Saturnian time. And so burnout may arise, and as a result of that, you may become aware that you don't feel supported in a certain situation, or maybe that you've been unconsciously, unintentionally operating beyond your capacity, which is what burnout is, over a long period of time. And I'm intentionally using burnout because I think that it's something that we don't often talk about. And I think that we misunderstand what burnout is. And the more that I've learned about burnout, and when I say burnout, it's when we really can't function in the way that we're used to. We feel a decline in our health, our ability to be present, and sometimes there can even be pain and illness or other symptoms that come up as a result of that. So the more that I've learned about burnout is that it is a consistent maxing out over a long period of time, and there is this culmination that happens over and over again. And it can be very difficult to recover from burnout and to actually get out of this cycle, because oftentimes burnout it's not an acute situation. It's something that happens because of a lifestyle. And I think that our work culture, at least in the Western world, really leads to burnout in many, particularly if there's a sort of helping, healing field that you're working in. And so in order to recover from burnout, that often requires modification or accommodations of the structure of your life. So this is all very Saturnian, all of this, the depletion of the life force energy, the structure of your life being a factor, and then the need to possibly transform the way that you're operating, your routines, your structure, your support system. So let's see, is there more that I want to say about this in this moment? So yeah, so this, yes, I did also want to say, part of this also is, how is this burnout coming about? And sometimes I'm thinking, for example, of a person who maybe is in a role of taking care of a parent or a child, something like this, where maybe it is something more temporary versus maybe a work or sensory situation that results in the burnout. And I think that even then, if it feels like, oh, this is just because of this temporary phenomenon, sometimes there can be a whole previous lifestyle way of being that contributes to the burnout. And then there's something more dramatic that happens that tips things over the edge. What is that saying? It's the needle, no, not the last straw, something like this. So regardless of what it is that leads to this scenario, situations of burnout may have us realizing, it may draw your attention to non-negotiable limitations, boundaries, or support systems that you need in order to function, either now and then going forward, in a way that is more structurally sound and sustainable for you. And so these are all Saturnian themes, things that are structurally sound, things that are sustainable. And you may find that there is or needs to be or wants to be a transformation in the way that you view your limits, your support, and how you show up. Oftentimes this can go deep, and it can go into how you value your time and your presence and your energy. So of course, your experience of Saturn, whether that's in the birth chart or in the transits, that will be unique depending on your unique makeup, your birth chart, how things are configured, the planets, the houses, the transits of the moment, the transits that you've had leading up to this, as well as your cultural context and the complexities of individual identity. So this includes marginalization, privilege, oppressive factors. These all are important factors into how you experience life, how you experience the world, and all of these factors color how the astrology may be embodied and expressed through you. So I think that's important to name as well. And yeah, so you may wish to contemplate as sort of a beginning acquaintance with the planet Saturn. You may wish to contemplate the house where Saturn is located in your birth chart. It's very easy to do this, to Google free birth chart, there are so many astrological birth chart calculations online now. And so it may be interesting to notice the house where Saturn is placed and the house where Saturn is transiting at any point in time. When I'm filming this, this is Saturn moving through the late part of Pisces, and Saturn is in process of making its way into Aries in the coming year. So transiting Saturn moves through each house in your birth chart within about a 2.5 to 3 year time frame. And so we could also think of Saturn's movement through these places as 2.5 to 3 year eras of transformation in different areas of your life. And so this again, where we have the static relationship to Saturnian themes, structures, limits, boundaries, that is always with you via the placement in your natal chart. And then there's this constant transformative effect of how it is working over time, again, in these periods that tend to last about 2.5 to 3 years. And so I also want to say too, I think that, of course, as an astrologer, as a therapist, transits are important because they can give us context of what's happening. I find looking at the transits and dissecting and understanding and talking about them, talking about your experience, it can be very validating. It can feel like, okay, this is what's happening. We can start to understand things from a perspective of taking some space and to also see what other possibilities are present. And also, sometimes it is helpful to look at the natal chart, the birth chart itself, because that is the root of your archetypal experience. Everything comes back to the natal chart. So the natal chart is the origin point. And sometimes there is something that is inherently rooted in that way that may or may not involve a specific transit. And I find this especially to be so with the planet Saturn, because Saturn is about the structure, the foundation, our limits, our boundaries. Saturn really is a symbol of how we move our limited energy and vitality through our lives and through the world. And so if there is something there that needs some tending, that will sort of color all else. Okay, so a few last things that I want to leave you here with that I think are important. So the placement of Saturn by house is especially important when Saturn is changing houses or changing zodiac signs. So the psychotherapist and astrologer Stephen Arroyo said that as transiting Saturn gets toward the end of a sign and is about to enter the next sign, as it is now, from Pisces to Aries, there's often some sort of event or experience or realization that is clearly related to the entire period just ending, and to the basic meaning of the house that Saturn is leaving. And so I thought that this was really interesting and important because and so I also wanted to step back and say that we're talking about several months of this period. So this is not like an on-off switch. It's sort of like a wave of energy that we can think about. So to give you some of the timing context as far as now. So the Saturn in Pisces era time period was from March of 2023. Saturn first moved into Pisces, and it will go through until February of 2026. So we have Saturn now on the edge of Pisces and Aries. Saturn retrograded back into Pisces just last week, September 1st of 2025, and it will be in Pisces until it moves forward into Aries, February 13th of 2026. And so we have Saturn on this threshold, this boundary line of Pisces and Aries, essentially from September of 2025 until February, March of 2026. So we could say during this time period, there may be experiences or events or realizations around what you have been transforming over the last 3 years or so while Saturn has been in Pisces. And I think that sometimes these realizations can be dramatic, sometimes they can be more subtle, sometimes things can come through via synchronistic events. Again, that sort of events that sort of have this culmination or completion sort of tone to them. It's sort of this, the way that I'm connecting into it, it sort of feels like a wrapping up sort of phenomenon. And I really like what Arroyo says here is that it gets us into the basic meaning of that house that Saturn is leaving for you. So in this case, this would be whatever house Pisces rules for you in your birth chart. And that's going to indicate a certain area of life. Of course, there's so much nuance to this via what other planets are in that house, where Jupiter is in your chart because Jupiter rules Pisces, and other planets in your birth chart that Saturn might be aspecting at this time. So lots of other layers, like a layer cake. Now, I want to leave you with this. So Saturn's nature is about time and allowing things to process, to integrate over time. Saturn is about things continuing to refine and deepen over time. And I think this is the case, even the way that we experience the transits. So, as I've just said, because Saturn moves so slowly, it may be, it's often near this sign change or house change for many months. And so, in my experience, these kinds of realizations, they may take some time to come together or to integrate. And I think that in honoring Saturn's nature, we can take time to contemplate. We can take time to allow our realizations to bloom and blossom in their own time as things are ready, and to really be with the process. And I say this to you as well as myself, to really be with the process and to intend to cultivate a sense of patience and witnessing of what is, and to also see the broader picture here. Saturn is so much about looking at the wider themes and arcs of our life, and to understand who and what and how we are becoming more of ourselves in this life. Thank you so much for listening, for reading. Again, my name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer. You can find out more about me and my work on my website, theastropsyche.com. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.